All right, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Call Halal, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bashim Rakakwadash, bless the Most High, bless, bless the Son of the Most High. All right, all praises in the Most High's name through the Son. All praises to the Most High in the name of the Son. All right, in the name of the Holy Spirit. All right, on the screen you can see article Doug Casey's International Man. That's internationalman.com. Food Crisis: The Greatest Threat to Social Stability by Jeff Thomas. Okay, it's an article that I wanted to take a look at real quick. So it says recently I was in a pharmacy and overheard the pharmacist say to someone, "There's so much unpleasantness on the news these days. I've stopped watching. I've stopped watching." Okay, so this is the sentiment of the people. All right, unpleasantness on the news. So basically the reports, okay, are unsavory to bear for the average citizen. All right, to the point where they don't want to watch the news anymore. It says I've stopped watching. The pharmacist had my sympathy. I love to be able to ignore the deterioration of the first world. It is, at turns, tedious, depressing, disturbing, and infuriating. All right, so people of this world, have this sentiment, okay, that they're seeing, especially a lot of Edomites, they're seeing the deterioration of their society, their kingdom, everything that they know and love is turning to dust. All right, well, like having one of those rods that turn to dust. You used to see them in the cartoons, right? Their power is diminishing. All right, they don't want to watch the news no more. Now the scriptures tell us watch as well as pray. Also, the scriptures say better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. All right, so this is good for us being Israelites in the know, having the understanding of Yahweh Bashim Shai, having the secrets, all right, understanding the counsel of the Lord. Okay. This is unfortunately we're now passing through what before it's over will be the most life altering period in our lifetime, and that's true. All right, because we're going from one ruler, all right, to another. All right, the end of an age, the end of a rulership. Okay, Esau, Edom is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning that follows. Let's get that real quick. I've been quoting that. Um, Matter of fact, I'm over here. Let me go here real quick. Um, we're coming into a transition, man. We're already in the transition. Okay. This is the book of Second Ezra 6. Let's start at 8. Let's start at 7. It says, Then answered I, Second Ezra 6, verse 7. Then answered I and said, What shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau, because it's all about Jacob and Esau, so-called white man, so-called black man. All right, so-called white man being Esau, so-called black man, all right, which turned into 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, Latinos and Native Americans included in Jacob. All right, it says, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. Okay, because Esau is the firstborn. So Esau came out of Rebekah. All right, because Rebekah went to entreat while there was a war in her womb, and the twins were fighting, Jacob and Esau. It says Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau, and that's how they came out the womb. All right, Jacob holding the feet of Esau. All right, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Okay, so the end of this world is the end of Esau, Edom. That's why all of these things are taking place. All of these things are taking place. Why is this muted? Hopefully, Lord's will, this thing comes through. But yeah, ultimately Esau is the end of the world. All right, Esau would be in power when Jacob, all right, would be brought into power after Esau. All right, and that's an eternal kingdom. Okay, it's a everlasting kingdom. It's a kingdom that will not be given to another people. That's in the book of Daniel's, the book of Daniel. All right, it says I cannot emphasize too strongly the importance of a possible shortage of food. Okay, and food shortages in the scriptures. Okay, we're gonna go into them. I cannot emphasize too strongly the importance of a possible shortage of food. History is filled with examples of cultures that would endure most anything and still behave responsibly. But nothing causes greater, more unpredictable, or more violent behavior in a people than lack of food. Yeah. So let me get this real quick. Because that's a very profound statement he made. I'll read it again. I cannot emphasize too strongly the importance of a possible food shortage. A possible shortage of food. History is filled with examples of cultures that would endure most anything and still behave responsibly, but nothing causes greater, more unpredictable, unpredictable or more violent behavior in a people than a lack of food. Okay. Now, when you go into the book of uh let me look up doves though. All right, so that's not it. Bear with me 1 second. It's in the book of I think it's Second Kings, 6th chapter. Let me see. Should look up dung. Yeah, it goes right here. 2 Kings 6:25. All right. Remind you, he said, yeah, people. And famine changes the characteristics of people quick, right? And hey, a good example of that is when they mentioned that three-letter word snow. Everybody runs to the store. We seen examples of that back in 2020, man. I remember me and the brother was talking on the phone. I was witness to it when everybody was running to the stores to stock up on toilet paper and you know daily essentials because they thought that they're going to be locked in during the lockdown. You know, when they wanted to curb what was the term that they was using? Fauci, you said, uh, uh, get ahead of the curve, basically. Shutting everything down. But this is Second Kings 6:25. It says, and there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it. And this was a famine created by war. Ben Hadad, king of Assyria, when you read the 24th verse, the prior verse, okay, he besieged Samaria, all right. Now, as the top, it says the siege of Samaria, cannibalism, all right, to the point where people are so desperate they resort to eating other people out of that desperation. All right, that's the time that we coming into, and that's why I'm reading this article in particular. You know, basically aligning the article up with history. You have people that content, calm. You take things away from them out of their daily lives, they'll accept it. But when you take food away from these average Babylonians, they're gonna go crazy. Okay. It says, and there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for fourscore pieces of silver. So it got to a point where an ass's head was sold for fourscore pieces of silver, and a fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. Right. So this army besieged Samaria to the point where you have scraps of food being sold for large amounts of money. All right, in particular, silver, five, you know, fourscore pieces of silver. It says, and as the king of Assyria was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help, my lord, O king. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? So they was going to their leaders, their elected officials in particular. This was the king. The king was elected to lead over the people. That he was given dominion to lead over the people, and he couldn't even help the average commoner. All right, how much more so these average politicians and that vote these senators and these congressmen to help these people in the coming days. He said, and he said, If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor, or out of the winepress? And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So these women made a deal, all right, where she ended up reneging on the deal, and you read the story. So we boiled my son and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. All right. So basically, she ate the woman that she made a deal with, ate her son on credit and reneged the next day to boil her son and eat, so that they eat the son together. She hid her son. All right. And that was what was ailing her. All right. That was what aileth her. Okay. Now let's go back to the article. It says, I cannot emphasize too strongly the importance of a possible food shortage, a shortage of food. History is filled with examples of cultures that would endure most anything and still behave responsibly, but nothing causes greater, more unpredictable, or more violent behavior in a people than lack of food. Interesting to note that whenever I converse with people on the finer points of the great unraveling, when I mention the words famine or food riots, even those who are otherwise quite comfortable discussing the subject tend to want to discuss the possibility that these will be aspects of troubles that are headed our way. For this very reason, I believe that we should shine a light on this eventuality, Shalaki. So this is an eventuality, all right, he uses. All right, and indeed it is an eventuality. All right, eventuality. It says a possible event or outcome. All right, this indeed is a possible event or outcome. Let's go to the book of Second Ezra. As you probably seen that right here. Second Ezra 15. All right, keep on point 19. I'm gonna read first few verses, and I'm gonna jump down to 19. Second Ezra 15 and 1, it says, Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. So these words are indeed true and faithful. All right, the majority of Jake, and that's the spirit that the elder Apostle Tahar have he did videos on talking about, and even elder Apostle Ramla is like Jake has no clue what's about to hit them. All right, because when this famine comes, man, you can't get weed, you can't get your daily vice to deal and cope with the stresses of Babylon. People gonna lose it, man. All right, and that's what we speak in the ears. We're speaking in the ears of the Lord's people, which are the Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, of what's getting ready to come, and we're showing you the words that are written in paper. All right, and we're declaring unto you that these words are faithful and true. All right, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. Fear not the imaginations against thee, which by us speaking this word, you have Christians, you have likes of Vocab, Malone, and other apologists, um, and a multitude of people that have imagined mischief against us for speaking his word. Fear not the imaginations against thee, let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. Now, the incredulity, that means unbelief. All right. So someone's unbelief, all right, the Most High have equipped us, all right, not to take that unbelief of them to heart, all right, because the Lord said these things are going to happen. So when I read articles like this, it confirms it, all right. Fear not the imaginations against thee, let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. All right, and ultimately that's going to happen because these people are going to be victims. They're going to be victims of what we're reading about at a point in time. Okay, they're going to become victims. All right, so going back into the precept, it says, "For all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world." And this is thus saith the Lord. I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. So famine is one of them that the Lord is going to bring. All right. He not only is going to bring famine, the sword. All right. With sword and famine, war brings famine. All right. War brings famine. All right. The sword and famine bring death. Right. And the sword only also brings destruction. All right. Let me jump down to verse 19. It says, "A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of lack of bread and for great tribulation." All right. So the end of this thing, which these people are anticipating, they want to hide from, especially a lot of these Edomites. All right. They're going to have to deal with this. All right. It's going to come a time where a minimum amount of food is going to become is going to be in great demand. All right, a bottle of wine, a bottle of $30 wine in a time of tribulation becomes very, very valuable because people want to get drunk, people want to take themselves away from the reality that they're going to be in. And when you drink, you become merry. But even in those times, it says strong drink. All right, so matter of fact, let's get it. I think it's Isaiah 24. Strong drink. Uh, hey, Shalom, Yahweh Bashim Shabbatah. Yeah, yeah, con. Hey, yeah, Babak Bashak, can you text it to me? I was in the middle of a video real quick. Come on. Hey, the water, Shalom. Come on, so let's see, strong drink. Isaiah 24, yeah. Here it goes right here. Isaiah 24 and 9. Um, started 8. It says, "The mirth of Tabaret ceaseth, the noise of them that rejoice endeth, the joy of the harp ceaseth. They shall not drink wine with a song. Strong drink shall be bitter to them that drink it." All right, the city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up, that no man may come in. Okay. See, I just wanted to bring that out. It comes to a point where even in this tribulation, strong drink is not going to be able to comfort these people. All right, in the coming of this society, in the coming days of the society. Let me see. What we got. Let's go back to here. Second Ezra 6:19 says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of lack of bread and for great tribulation. All right, so it's going to be so much tribulation in this society. All right, people are not going to be able to enjoy themselves and have mirth. All right, this is what they're running from. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, back to the video. Shalakia. All right, let's go back and Shalakia for the. Let's go back now. Now it says interesting to note that whenever I converse with people on the finer points of the great unraveling, I read that. This is the present state of the industry. In America, the food industry is not in good shape. Normally, the food industry relies on low profit, high volume basis, leaving little room for error. Add to this fact that many business owners and managers in the food industry have given in to the temptation to build up debt over the years. Inflation has made that task especially difficult. Some have been keeping their noses above water, others have gone under. Hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is a very real possibility. Historically, whenever a government creates massive debt and greatly increases the printing of currency, dramatic inflation, if not hyperinflation, results. Those businesses that are already on the red edge will find that when they're paid, they cannot buy the same volume of goods for the same amount of dollars. This will be true throughout the entire food supply chain. Of course, little inflationary blips are the normal in business and business adjustments to them. The problem comes when there are large increases that continue steadily over a period of months. When this occurs, we'll see a greater frequency of food supply businesses going belly up. Yeah, they just did a recent it's a little spot that I go to out here, and they did a expose how this Jake, he had one store, and he opened up another store. He did good, but now the price of his goods, the price of his goods, especially in particular, he uses a lot of chicken tenders, chicken tender cut chicken to make a lot of his recipes like rasta pasta, some chicken recipes and stuff like that. So a box, $70 box, probably doubled to $140. So it's only a limit to him being able to pass that cost on to his consumers and change those menu prices, because people have other opportunities. Some people will eat at home, so it's only a certain amount of things he can do. It's another spot over there in Lexington Market too. They buy a lot of eggs, and the price of their eggs went up. So they buy dozens and dozens of eggs. Restaurant. So you could be spending $200 in eggs a day. Just operating a restaurant. So when that price goes up, and you go from spending $200 to $250 to $300 for eggs. I'm just using that as an example. You're being squeezed. Your profit, you got to pay, you got to keep the lights on. You got a lot of operating costs that you have to do. So businesses are really struggling, and this hyperinflation adds another form of uncertainty and pressure. Okay. It says in a normal business climate, the failure of some businesses would aid the competition as they would have new markets to take on. But if the remaining businesses are already having trouble, they will not be able they would not be in a condition to expand. The disappearance of large numbers of providers will result in failure of delivery to the next business down the chain. Nationwide distribution will become inadequate. This, of course, will not be uniform. Some areas will suffer worse than others. Those types of areas that are already chronically problematic will be hit hardest. Those who are the most likely to go down the earliest will be those who have the highest overheads and the lowest volume. Typically, these are small stores, the ones on the street corners in every city. These stores are critical if a supermarket in the suburb experiences a shortage. Purchasers may drive across town to another supermarket. Not so in the city. If a corner store has empty shelves or worse, closes completely, the purchaser in that neighborhood must walk to the next neighborhood to buy, and they might not be welcome there if the people in the neighborhood are already having problems with supply at their local store. Worse, should the second store also close, the number of purchases is redoubled. When the shoppers from two stores arrive at the third store, physical conflict between shoppers is a near certainty. Yes, so this can cause neighborhood fighting. It can cause uh, class wars. All right, race wars. You know, depending on where that neighborhood is situated, the stores. So you're gonna have a whole bunch of issues that you could happen that could happen. And the police ain't gonna be able to police these matters. You know, it says food panic doesn't necessarily occur if a retailer carefully assesses his increased market and ration sales so that everybody gets a slight lesser share. In fact, I've personally seen this work well in the event of a natural disaster in my home country. The panic does occur when the availability suddenly becomes non-existent, even for a brief time, and the shoppers are unsure when it will be resumed. In inner city, this is exacerbated by three factors. One, shipments from suppliers become erratic and insufficient. Yeah, that's when you don't know when the shipment is coming in into the store, and when the shipment comes into the store, it's less than anticipated for the demand that is on that store. All right, it says a significant increase in number of shoppers cleans out the store, so you have a large influx of shoppers that are not normally shopping at the store, but they have a demand, and this exacerbates a shortage. It says individual shoppers become unreasonable demanding. That's why they had to put limits on how much you can buy, because you'll have shoppers coming in buying 20 cases of water, which they were doing at Costco, a few months ago. It comes a time where you see shoppers coming to Costco stocking up on water, buying like 20, 30 cases of water. You know, it says this last factor in any inner city situation is almost always responsible for the chaos that involves into a riot. It works like this. A mother complains that there is no bread for her children to have a sandwich. Her husband becomes angry at the problem and goes down to the corner store demanding a loaf of bread. The store manager says that he cannot release the bread until the next morning. When the neighbor knows they can each come and buy one loaf only, the man becomes angrier, goes in the back and takes a loaf of bread. The manager resists and is shot. So going back in the second Ezra, we went in the second Ezra. I'll read it again. Second Ezra 15 and 19. It says, "A man shall have no pity on his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of lack of bread and great tribulation." So that man has that pressure from his woman, coming from the pressure that that woman is receiving from the kids. The kids, I'm hungry, mommy. And then the wife is, gets on her husband. And it's going to lead to a lot of death for a lot of men. Because a lot of men are going to become irrational, and they're going to the spirits gonna hop on them, and they're gonna end up perishing, all right, because they're not using wisdom. They're just being brutes, right? So, that's the type of time that we coming into, you know. And when it hits, you really know that you're into it. You're really in it. Um, let's go back. It says, the man on his way out grabs a carton of cigarettes and a couple of six packs of beer for good measure. The store now unmanaged is looted. Those shoppers who are normally peaceful people begin to panic and realize that time to grab what you can. In these situations, the food stores are generally cleaned out quickly. In a very short period of time, a full-scale riot may be in play. The most inner-city riots, the liquor stores are hit early on, then appliance stores, and so on down the line. But this is no ordinary riot, unlike a riot triggered by, say, a TV news clip of policemen beating seamlessly innocent man. The trigger is ongoing, and more importantly, it is not at its heart anger based. It is fear based, and it is self perpetuating. Shipments are not resumed to a store that has no one running it. Worse, additionally, store owners close for fear that they're next. The situation escalates very quickly. Now, this is a lot. All right, we can read this real quick, and then I read through this real quick, and then I'm in the video here. But it says, enter the cavalry. While the US and Europe have seen many riot situations, and we can therefore study how they play out, a series of self-perpetuating riots has not taken place before. It's likely that within weeks a national emergency would be declared, and rightly so. But how to deal with it? Certainly the president and state governments would quickly begin to work with wholesalers to ensure that food got to the cities and any other location that are also troubled. Needless to say, suppliers will refuse, stating that in such a situation, they cannot get paid for any food that they deliver. Truckers will state that they cannot accept the danger that their drivers will be exposed to. Politicians, feeling the pressure from their constituents, will want to act decisively, even if their decisions prove ineffectual. In such cases, those politicians who are more conservative may decide to send in truckloads of food to be handed out for free, with the control of the Department of Homeland Security to Department of Homeland Security to hopefully keep order. Those politicians who are more liberal will believe that the right situation is to nationalize food supply in their states, and possibly nationally, to take over the control of delivery. As can be imagined, the results will vary from suburban situations in which the store staff are still in place and the provision of food at the retail level remains orderly, to inner city situations in which trucks will be routinely ransacked. The evening news will show a clip of shoppers running down the streets with a case of boxes of cornflakes while heads of lettuce rolling on the pavement, some to be picked up, others to be trampled. Meanwhile, at the other end of the supply chain, the wholesaler is trying to explain to the politicians that if he's not paid in some way for the food he sends out, he simply cannot continue. Politicians, especially the more liberal ones, not understanding the workings of business, regard the businessman as simply being greedy and fail to understand that without an orderly flow of money, business stops. The politicians place a temporary ban on all food containers being shipped overseas, even though the overseas customer may be the only truly reliable payers. The politicians advise the wholesalers that they will be paid eventually if the money does not exist in the state's treasury. Some politicians may even promise future tax credits as payment. As a result, the supply of food breaks down on a major scale. It says how it all shakes out. Historically, there's nothing so chaotic as famine. As long as the people have a crust of bread, and as long as it arrives regularly, there's a chance that events may be controlled. It's the very unpredictability of supplies that cause panic, and the greater the concentration of potential recipients, the greater the panic. Now, I got a precept that I wanted to go into. Wax cold. And when this happens, the politicians ain't going to be able to do anything. It's Matthew 24 and 12. It says, and because of iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Okay. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. But this society is so wicked, and everybody has been taught to be about themselves, even in the time of panic and uncertainty. Somebody's going to go into the store and try to take more than what they can handle, try to get an abundance, you know, and and that's how riots and fights break out. You know, a good example of that. I remember there's a scene in the movie. What's that movie? It's about forgot the name of the movie, man. They was in a line in a pharmaceutical, in a pharmacy, and all hell broke loose. The name of that movie, man. It's about a movie when a disease breaks out. It came out a long time ago. It started with a woman. She had an affair. I think she had an affair, and the man dropped dead. She was in it, I think it was in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not sure. I can't think of the movie right now. What the name of that movie was, man. We used to watch it all the time, man. It's about a disease that went out. Okay, let me see. Let me go back to scripture. Speak of lewdness is the mother of all famine. Let me get that. Okay, that's in the book of Tobit. Tobit. Yeah, Tobit 4:13. Look up this word lewdness. Or lewd. Lewd, obscene, vulgar, says sexual, unchaste, or licentious. So lewdness refers to the quality or state of being vulgar, crude, obscene, or offensive, particularly in sexual context. It describes behavior or actions that are intended to stimulate sexual excitement or are considered indecent. In essence, lewdness encompasses indecent behavior that is sexually explicit or inappropriate. Now let's go to the book of Tobit 13. Let's see what Tobit 13 is. Tobit 13 and 12. It says, beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe. For we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they were all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. Verse 12, it says, beware of all whoredom, my son. Oh no, verse 13, it says, now therefore, my son, love thy brethren, and despise not in thy heart thy brethren, the sons and daughters of thy people, and not taking a wife of them. For in pride is destruction and much trouble, and in lewdness is decay. All right. And that's how the society decayed. Sexual revolution in the 70s. The hippie movement going in the late 60s, 70s. You see Babylon the Great Decay. Also, when they started going into the upper echelons of the heavens, space race and all of that, started the incline of the decline of Esau. So-called white man's power. It says, "For in pride is destruction and much trouble, and in lewdness is decay." Right? Lewdness is decay and great want. For lewdness is the mother of famine. Right? It says lewdness is the mother of famine. All right. So before famine comes, you have lewdness. All right. That's why you gotta go through this. People are afraid of this, but you have to go through this. We're the watchmen. We're the ones that declare, yeah, indeed, it is a famine coming. What you Edomites, you average Edomites, and you other nations, even our people, what you're afraid of is what's going to come upon you. All right, it's going to take you just like it took the people of yesteryears. It says, historically, there's nothing so chaotic as famine. As long as people have a crust of bread, and as long as it arrives regularly, there's a chance that events may be controlled. It's the very unpredictable unpredictability of supply that causes panic. And the greater the concentration of potential recipients, the greater the panic. Small wonder that when I speak to friends and associates about the great unraveling, this one facet often makes them recoil in a desire to avoid the subject entirely. Once this particular house of cards begins to fall, it will fall much faster than the economy in general, and the results will unquestionably be extreme. So, if the politicians are unlikely to effect a workable solution, at least in the short term, how does this all play out? After all, no famine lasts forever. What historically happens during a famine is that chaos ensues for a period of time. Some people are killed in attempting to take food from the authorities who control the distribution. Other people are killed on their way home by others who want the food they are carrying. Others are killed in their homes when raided by those who are hungry. Still others die of starvation. It's horrible, it's horrific to say, but after a time in such situations, famines become the new normal, and as illogical as it would seem, this is the turning point. Chaos eventually devolves into hopelessness and listlessness. What's the word listlessness mean? It says listlessness. It says listlessness refers to a feeling of apathy, large, uh, large, large, largely lethargy, or lack of interest or enthusiasm. It says reduced energy and motivation, difficult concentrating, focusing, indifferent towards activities that were previously enjoyable, feeling sluggish and unmotivated, in a sense of weariness and exhaustion. Chaos eventually devolves into hopelessness and listless, listless. It says listlessness, and the panic disappears. Then at some point, the line of supplies are slowly restructured, generally on a more limited scale than before. This is there a timeline for the above to occur? This is for the reader to decide. Each of us will have some general picture in our heads regarding the likelihood and timing of a second crash in the stock market, the the rapidity and degree of hyperinflation, and the many other aspects that make up the great unraveling of the economy. So they call this the great unraveling. All right, you had the Great Depression. Now you have the great unraveling of how the economy was structured after the Great Depression, and how it's collapsing, and how they did everything to kick the can down the road until they had to address the problem. All right, they had to deal with the problem. And ultimately, in their attempts to deal with the problem, implementing the MOTB is going to lead to nuclear destruction. All right, there is going to be a famine. Okay. Um, it says, therefore, those who accept that harder times are looming, but would rather not consider the likelihood of food riots and famines, would be advised to read the above article a second time and then begin to plan. And there's no planning for this. Okay. There's no planning for this. Even if you do plan for it, you're not guaranteed that you're going to be able to reap the fruits of what you prepared for. All right. Because a lot of this stuff that they preparing is they preparing for Yahweh Bashim Shah's servants to eat in that particular time. And the spirit of the Lord is going to guide them. Just like good example is the movie The Road. You know, they came across a bunker and they were able to eat. They were able to, clean their clothes. Wash themselves up and all of that. All right. It says those who do not presently have backdoor situations in place may wish to set the wheels in motion and to international internationalize themselves. One thing is certain: once riots situations begin, there will not be enough time to plan. Okay, it says editor notes, you might think these food shortages and riots will only hit the inner cities. Maybe the chaos will simply pass by you. Unfortunately, that's unlikely. In fact, your nice neighborhood could make you an easy target. The masses, and more critically, the government, may try to grab the money and resources you diligently tucked away. See? Yeah, and that's another thing too. The president has executive orders going back many presidents before him to basically take you out of your neighborhood, to confiscate your resources, so on and so forth, man. So you can't get out of this, man. It says the truth is there's only one way to opt out of this kind of economic and social breakdown. It's the absolute best way to protect yourself, your family, and your finances. But chances are you haven't done it yet. Yeah, what's coming people not prepared for, you know. But I'm gonna end the video here. Call hello, Yahweh Bashim El Shai, Bashim Kwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Salutation to you brothers pushing this word, truth, and sincerity. Till the next video, shalom.